Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. First, thank you for your support of KBLA Talk 1580. We deeply appreciate you. So, I get asked all the time, Tavis, when are you going to bring back that State of the Black Union symposium you used to do? You know the one where you had all those black intellectuals on stage every year and everybody watched all day live on C-SPAN? Yeah, I know the one. Let's bring a bang. Well, I am pleased to tell you that if you go to KBLA1580.com right now, you can sign up to be in the audience here in Los Angeles when we go back live on C-SPAN with a stage full of black thinkers and influencers for a historic conversation. America has never seen a stage full of black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's going down Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. Once we reach capacity, you'll have to watch us on C-SPAN. But if you want to be in the room when we go live from Los Angeles, Tuesday, June 18th, head to KBLA1580.com right now to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. With KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Take me back to LA. Take me back to LA. Take me back to LA. I've laughed, I've cried, I've lived, I've died. Stole from gambled and cheated, cut corners outside. I've tried and I failed, stood tall and made run. I fought the Cold War, get up, I turn. Take me back to LA. And the weather is good. Take me back to LA.
I love that track. It's called L.A. By the artist Sir. And here just a second. There's a new book out called Rising from the Ashes, Los Angeles, 1992. Edward Jae Song Lee, Latasha Harlins, Rodney King, and a City on Fire. The author of that book, Paula Yoo, joins us live in studio right now. Before I get to Paula, though, as I promised moments ago, a bit more on this breaking news. I don't know a whole lot. I do know that the networks are reporting, AP and others, that Hamas has announced publicly that it has accepted an Egyptian-Qatari ceasefire proposal. Let me read just a few paragraphs from the AP story. The Hamas militant group says it has accepted an Egyptian-Qatari ceasefire proposal to halt the 7-month war with Israel. It issued a statement Monday saying its supreme leader, Ismail Haniyeh, had delivered the news in a phone call with Qatar's prime minister and Egypt's intelligence minister. The two Middle Eastern nations have been mediating months of talks between Israel and Hamas. No immediate comment from Israel. The announcement, though, did come hours after Israel ordered Palestinians to begin evacuating the southern Gaza town of Rafah ahead of a military operation there. Israel says Rafah is Hamas's last stronghold, and news of Hamas's announcement has sent people in Rafah cheering in the streets. There'll be a lot to unpack here in the hours and days to come about why this ceasefire has been accepted by Hamas. Again, it is impossible to de-link, to decouple. They're accepting this ceasefire proposal from Israel announcing that it was headed into Rafah anyway, against every bit of international opposition. Israel was going into Rafah anyway, calling it the last stronghold of Hamas. And so I think around the globe, this news has to be greeted warmly has to be greeted with cheers, not just from the folk in Rafah, but indeed, again, around the world. People must be, for the moment at least, breathing a sigh of relief that Hamas has agreed to accept this ceasefire proposal. As I said, and as I read this statement at least, no comment from Israel. The minute we get that, we'll pass that on to you. We'll see what they have to say about it. But at the moment, Hamas has announced that it at least has accepted this Egyptian-Qatari ceasefire proposal that they've been working on for some months now, after 7 months of this war. So there you have it. That's as much as I know at this hour. More when I know it, if I know it, between now and the close of this program, 2 hours from now. But that's what we know at this hour. Now, I'm delighted to have Paula Yoo in studio. Her book is called Rising from the Ashes, Los Angeles, 1992, Edward Jae Song Lee, Latasha Harlins, Rodney King, and A City on Fire. Paula, thanks for your patience. Good to have you in studio. How are you today?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my great delight to have you in. And again, thank you for just sitting through that while we got that breaking news out of the way. But now to your book, Rising from the Ashes. So it turns out that this program, of course, is heard nationally in cities all across the country, but we're based in L.A., and my home station, KBLA Talk 1580, where we are seated right now in the studio. The very first live remote that we did was just a year or two ago on the occasion of the 30th anniversary of the beating of Rodney King and the blowing up of this city, the burning down of this city, as it were. And so I'll always recall that as part of the history of this particular black talk radio station, that we were, again, doing our very first live remote at the intersection of Florence and Normandy, where they so severely beat Reginald Denny and became a flashpoint, as you know, in these uprisings 30 years ago. I want to start by asking, before I get too deeply into this, what it is about this particular subject matter, now 30 plus years ago, that made you want to write a book about it.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. And to answer your question, I am Korean American. I grew up actually in Connecticut, of all places, and I've been out in Los Angeles since 1995. But I clearly remembered watching live on the news. I was in New York City at the time. I was getting my graduate degree in journalism at Columbia University. And I was actually on a date, and we were at the bar, and we started watching the news, and I said and I was a journalism student. I said, the date is over. And we stayed and watched what was happening, and it broke my heart. And I do have cousins and relatives out here as well. So I would say, I'm a Gen Xer, so I would say that the LA uprising is a big part of my youth as a 20-something back then. And so I've known about it for more than half my life, and I think that's what inspired me to write the book, especially because as a Korean American, we were often shuttled to the side as a sidebar. And a lot of times we were portrayed as the villains, and there was just not a lot of nuance in the coverage, as well as the relationship before, during, and after with our community and the black community. And I wanted to explore that in more depth and give it the respect and nuance that it deserved.
Let's explore that when we come forward. The book is called Rising from the Ashes. The author of that book, Paula Yoo, is live with us right now on Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/blackbeyondmeasure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos, and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number and put in a false claim.
if I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement. Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk, too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation.
Our guest is Paula Yoo. She's the author of the new book, which drops tomorrow officially, called Rising from the Ashes, Los Angeles, 1992, Edward Jae Song Lee, Latasha Harlins, Rodney King, and a City on Fire. For those who were not around 30-plus years ago, who don't recall the backstory of what happened here 30 years ago, tell me more about the Korean connection and why, as a Korean American, you wanted to delve more deeply into this.
Well, one of the most interesting statistics was that there was about $1 billion in damage that happened, and almost half of it was disproportionately in Koreatown. And one of the reasons why was because everyone thinks it was the LAPD beating and the acquittal of the officers against an unarmed black motorist, Rodney King. But really, when you talk to a lot of people, they say actually what started the fires and the protests was actually what happened the year before with Latasha Harlins, who was shot and killed after falsely being accused of shoplifting by a Korean American store owner. And her sentence was equally as shockingly lenient, which was the Judge Joyce Carlin ruled that she was Mrs. Do, Sunja Do, who shot and killed Latasha Harlins, that she was guilty of voluntary manslaughter, but she was only given 3 years probation and a $500 fine. Mm-hmm. Later there would be a wrongful death lawsuit in which the children were given, the brother and sister were given a little bit of a settlement after that at least. So there was a little bit of financial compensation there, but there was no justice. And that had been simmering for a while. So I think when the LAPD acquittals were announced, that everything, the fire had been already lit. It was like basically, as they say, throwing a match on a lit gasoline.
Yeah.
So.
When you say there was no justice, that's Paula Yoo talking. Mm-hmm. Give me a better sense of how the Korean community felt, because you're right, people who know this story well, mm-hmm. Those who were in Los Angeles at the time when the whole world watched the city burn, they do recall that a year prior, mm-hmm. This Sunja Do, Latasha Harlins incident is really what sort of set things off, and a year later people just couldn't take it anymore. Mm-hmm. And the city just went up in flames after the verdicts in the Rodney King case. But how, in retrospect, again, you called it, referred to it as no justice. How did the Korean community feel about that verdict?
Many of us also felt the same way. I think the problem was, in doing my research, a lot of how the mainstream media covered the events, it was basically what I call lazy journalism. It was easier to pit two disenfranchised, marginalized communities who were fighting and competing over limited resources due to redlining, a history of racist covenant housing laws, the freeways that split the city, and I think that you already had this situation, and instead of looking at the big elephant in the room, which is systemic racism and laws rooted in white supremacy, let's just blame two marginalized communities, make it their fault. Let's spread the horrible racist stereotype that the black community is anti-Asian xenophobic. Let's spread the racist stereotype that all Koreans are anti-black. when that's not true. Are there jerks? Are there people who have discrimination and prejudice in every community? Of course there is, but that does not define either community as a whole. And I think throughout the decades and the centuries, American history that's taught in our schools from kindergarten through 12th grade, nobody talks about the solidarity between Black and Asian American communities throughout the centuries. People don't talk about, there's in the Delta, there's a famous Chinese American and Black small town where, after the railroads, there are little towns like that where these wonderfully diverse and melded communities. People didn't talk about all the Black customers that loved the Korean store owners in their neighborhood and protected their stores. I interview a lot of those communities and the residents and the store owners there. And yes, were there tensions? I'm not denying that. Of course there were. But we have to look at the foundation of systemic racism and what led to pitting these communities against each other. So there was actually even there was the Black Korean Alliance that had formed many years before Latasha was killed, and they worked very hard to try to ease tensions. They even had courses and contracts that store owners had to learn about how to talk, politely with their customers, because there were cultural differences. They've talked about that. But so you had that, and you also had there was a toy drive for Latasha Harlins' family that many Korean American businesses got together. So again, I'm not denying that yes, anti-Blackness does exist for some people in the Korean and other Asian American communities, but I think the majority of us are not that way. But I think that it's just easy to blame other people than to look at the foundation of our country and how it's a much bigger problem.
I don't normally do this to guests, but you're so smart. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Uh-oh.
If I said to you, when it comes to this relationship or lack thereof between the Korean community and the Black community, in LA specifically, but across the country, but since we're talking about LA 30 plus years ago, there's one searing image that I think every Black person who remembers this 30 years ago has in their mind when they think of the Korean community and its response. Would you care to guess what image is in my mind right now? I'm talking about a visual image.
You're talking about the store, the videotape captured, which broke my heart and horrified me.
That image, absolutely. And you add to that the images of those Korean store owners on rooftops with their shotguns. Those images are seared, I think, in the minds of Black people. And that cannot be disconnected from whatever relationship does or does not exist even all these years later. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, those are really great points. And again, they say a picture tells 1,000 words. Here are the 1,000 words behind those pictures. What people don't understand is that the police were not around to protect the stores. And every time you watch the live local ABC News or whatever the local news stations were, or the pictures, all they ever showed were Korean quote-unquote vigilantes with guns shooting. What they never showed was what they saw on the other side. What they never talked about was a lot of their employees. One man's wife and sister were shot in the stomach. They had no recourse. They also don't talk about the fact that in Korea, now I'm Korean American, I'm not Korean, but I know that from studying Korean history that since the Korean War, we have military conscription. That's why the band BTS, the K-pop band, they're serving the military. Korean men from ages 18 to 28.
I like those guys, by the way.
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah. They're really great people. They're a great group. And they donated $1 million to Black Lives Matter because they understand that's a whole other topic. But talking about the influence and the history of Black music, R&B and rap and its influence in Korea. I'll come back for that. We can talk about that. But going back to these images, people didn't realize that a lot of these Korean American men, who came from Korea, they had military experience. They knew how to use guns. They weren't gun-toting vigilantes. They had military experience. So you have that. In terms of Latasha Harlins, that was one of the most horrifying. I was traumatized seeing that, and not because I'm Korean American, just because this was a little girl. And in reading about what happened, just so you know, with my book, I interviewed over 100 people, including in depth for a few years, the families of Edward Jae Song Lee, the Korean American kid who was killed, ironically, in the crossfire by another Korean store owner, tried to protect the store. And then I also had the honor of interviewing the families of Latasha Harlins and Rodney King. And I also went to the courthouse, and I paid, I think it was 50 cents a page for all hundreds of pages of the court transcript. So I read the entire court. So I actually feel like I was at the trial because I read every single page. So I think that there was a lot that was not unpacked in terms of what happened in the trial. People don't talk about and again, I'm not excusing anything. The reason why I say justice was not served was Sunja Do expressed sincere remorse. She did not say, "Hey, I want probation. I don't give me justice." She never said that. She was willing to go to jail. But it was a white judge. Just like my other book that I wrote about a similar case with Vincent Chin. Again, we have to look at it is these judges, people in power who happen to be white, that are saying, we think you're innocent. And what really bothered me reading the entire statement, the sentencing by Joyce Carlin was what horrified. It's funny too because I would be researching this at 3 a.m. I would wake up my husband screaming, going, "This is ridiculous!" I was so angry.
Poor guy.
Yeah, I know. He's like, "What?" And I just got so mad reading these transcripts. But the judge, she actually said, I could not believe she had the gall to say, if Latasha were alive today, maybe she would be on trial for assault. That's ridiculous. This is a child. This is a woman who scared her, who grabbed her backpack. She was trying to protect her cousin's backpack. And, she obviously, she's a kid. She reacts, she hits Mrs. Du. And Mrs. Du did get a black eye from that. But the thing is she's a kid. Kids do stupid things. They should not be shot for that. They should not be killed. Black teenagers are not allowed to be children. They're not allowed to be kids. We treat them our society is very racist in how we portray kids. So Latasha was portrayed as an adult when she was a child. She wasn't even old enough to drive. And then the problem with Mrs. Du was that the judge said, "Oh, she's never committed a crime before. She's really innocent," and she started perpetuating the Asian stereotypes of Asian women as being docile and submissive and China doll.
How did you read that part, as we say, that part when you have a white woman, a jurist, who is playing into those stereotypes and basically setting a frame for the verdict that she was eventually about to read of 3 years probation for killing this precious black baby, this precious black child. How did you read that part?
Well, after I stopped screaming in anger reading the transcripts, she definitely played into the stereotypes. And what really made me angry was people don't understand that when you read the court transcripts, race is never mentioned. It is about a store owner they had bought this, the Du family had bought Empire Liquor in 1980s, I can't remember the exact, 1989. And at that time, there were almost 1,000 felonies within a 32-block radius. 12 murders had happened. At the time Latasha walked into that store, the family had been threatened at gunpoint over 30 times in just 1 month. They had been targeted by the gangs. And so they were already traumatized. So you have this horrible it's a perfect storm of many wrong things to happen. On top of it, the gun that Mrs. Du had been stolen once, so the trigger had been shaved down, so it was a hair trigger. And she actually told her son not to come to work because he was tired, and she was scared for him. She said, let Mama and Papa take over the store today. Her husband was in the van outside taking a nap. This is how hard they worked. And so all she knew was anyone that came in with blue or yellow colors, be careful. So she sees Latasha walking in with a blue and gold UCLA Bruins cap. That's the irony right there. And so she's not thinking, and I wasn't there. Some people in the trial, it was interesting, they talked about the hair trigger. Was it an accident? I think that's why it went from murder to manslaughter, because there was that question of the hair trigger on the gun. But I think I think at the end of the day, not once did anyone talk about her being Korean or about Latasha being black. It was about a little girl, who was just recently overcoming the traumatizing murder of her mother. Her mother was killed, shot. So you have all this. They're not. The judge does. She only sees race. Nobody else saw race during the trial, and she's the one that brought it up.
Yeah. There are two ways to read that. At least two ways. One way to read it is that race shouldn't have been a factor. It's about the humanity of these two people. the other way to read it is that was completely unacceptable.
Yeah.
Where race is clearly at the epicenter of this, and it never gets raised in this trial. Which is the correct read?
And that's a really good question too. I'm not saying that it should be either or.
Sure.
I think that definitely you have to look at how Koreans coming from a foreign country, from a country outside, the anti-black images that they grew up with. Not everybody did. You have to look at the fact that all you ever saw was Bruce Lee on, the fact that Asians were the perpetual foreigner. Even though we've been in this country for centuries, starting with the Filipinos in 1763 in New Orleans. So, you have all that. So definitely, I think in a more academic sense, race does play a part. Can people become prejudiced based on these images and things like that? Of course they can. But what's interesting is when I talked with the Harlins family, they very emphatically said not once were they anti-Korean. In fact, there was a store nearby that they used to go to as well that was owned by a Korean family that they loved. And it was just that the Empire Liquor had a bad reputation.
I've got 2 minutes left here, and
yes.
we could spend hours talking about this. Let me ask you how you would, again, not that you are a prognosticator, a soothsayer, all-knowing, although you're awfully bright, whether or not whether, but to what extent anti-blackness does exist in the Korean community today?
I think in the Korean American community, at least among the people, my friends and my personal community, we don't deny that anti-blackness exists in our society among all cultures. You look at affirmative action, which I'm very much in favor of affirmative action, and it's disappointing to me to see that we are being used as a wedge, in that. And I think there's a growing number of us, especially the younger generation, where we're saying no more. I can talk to you all I want about how bad and horrible anti-Asian racism is, but if I don't say Black Lives Matter, if I don't speak up and support financially and emotionally and personally the black community, then I'm speaking into an echo chamber, and I think that what people don't, some of the new stuff in my book is that the Harlins, they were working with a Korean church recently in a business program. I actually just spoke with Laura King last night, and she says hello.
And Rodney's daughter,
Yeah, and
nice lady.
And her daughter's a K-pop fan. So, I think that there is hope, but I think that it's not just about performative speaking. We have to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And that's why I support black orchestras, because I'm a musician. So I try to put my money and my actions where my mouth is.
Yeah.
So I'm not just speaking to you, I'm doing.
She's talented. She's a journalist. She plays violin in the symphony orchestra. So she's all kind of brilliant. Her name is Paula Yoo. She calls this book her love letter of solidarity between our communities, in the hopes that we will continue to build bridges together. But there are lessons, stark lessons to be learned even all these decades later, from the burning down of the city of L.A. after the verdicts in the Rodney King case, which were essentially sparked by what happened the year prior, when Latasha Harlins, this black baby, was murdered by Soon Ja-do, this Korean store owner. The book is called Rising from the Ashes, Los Angeles, 1992, Edward Jae Song Lee, Latasha Harlins, Rodney King, and A City on Fire. You've done good, Paula Yoo. It's a great book, very well researched. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you so much, and I just want to add that my love and respect goes out to Latasha, Glenn, and Eddie's families. I'm very honored to have met them.
You are kind to have mentioned that. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first-ever 99.9% pure silver-proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
We thank you for sharing a part of your Monday with us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest. Millions of people living in the central United States are bracing for possible tornadoes. Forecasters say a storm front currently dumping heavy rain and snow in the northwest will bring severe weather to the Midwest and the Central Plains today into tomorrow. And that includes large hail, damaging winds, and possible tornadoes. Dangerous weather is predicted today from South Dakota to North Texas. We're now learning a new line of jewelry from Tiffany & Company inspired by African-American hip-hop giant Pharrell Williams is now available. The collection features nautical pieces including tridents, anchors, and more, taking themes from the Poseidon. The Tiffany Titan collection can be found online. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Need money for the holidays? Avoid the yikes before Christmas. Hurry into Jackson Hewitt for a holiday loan on your tax refund, up to $1,000. Early refund advance offered to eligible clients. Application required. Finance charge applies. Loans by Republic Bank. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Clippers owner Steve Ballmer does not want to see Coach Ty Lue go to the Lakers. Ballmer has instructed Clippers GM Lawrence Frank to start working on a contract extension for Lue. Lue has a year remaining on his contract, but Ballmer is making sure the Lakers don't get a chance to offer Lue and the Clippers a buyout settlement. Lue's name came up as a potential candidate for the Lakers job after Darvin Ham was fired on Friday. Lue said he would prefer to stay with the Clippers. Lue has led the Clippers to the playoffs in 3 of the 4 seasons he's been with the team. They were in the Western Conference Finals in 2021. The Black College World Series starts Wednesday in Montgomery, Alabama. 16 teams will converge in Montgomery for the 3-day tournament. Albany State, Savannah State, and West Virginia State are among the participating HBCU schools. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversations when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors. It helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQL.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep
to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil Nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
In case you've just tuned in, we announced this about a half hour ago when the news broke, but Hamas has announced that it has accepted an Egyptian-Qatari ceasefire proposal. This announcement came hours after Israel ordered Palestinians to begin evacuating the southern Gaza town of Rafah ahead of an Israeli military operation. Israel has said that Rafah is Hamas's last stronghold, but Hamas just a little while ago accepted this ceasefire that Egypt and Qatar have been negotiating for quite some time, and we are told, as a matter of fact, if you were listening a half hour ago, you heard the cheers as I was reading the story from the AP. The volume on my phone was turned up. You could hear a bunch of people cheering. Those are the cheers of people in the streets of Rafah. Audio that was connected or is connected to the story that I was reading again from the AP. So they're breathing a sigh of relief inside of Gaza, inside of Palestine at the moment. We are still awaiting, at least I am. I've not seen it as yet. I'm across the wire, awaiting Israel's response. But Hamas has said that they have in fact accepted this Qatari ceasefire proposal. That's what I have right now. When there's more to report, I will share it with you if it happens while I am on the air over the next hour and 20 minutes or so. That said, I am delighted to welcome to this program. It's been a long time since he and I have been in dialogue, but I've known he and his wonderful family for many, many years. He's the former Ohio Secretary of State, Ken Blackwell, and he joins us now to celebrate the 100th anniversary. I didn't even know this. The 100th anniversary of his uncle, DeHart Hubbard, who won a historic gold medal victory at the 1924 Paris Olympic Games, again, a century ago. We all know the story of Jesse Owens. That was 1936 in Berlin. Those were Hitler's Olympics, and we all know that Jesse Owens just showed out. We all know the exploits of one Jesse Owens in 36 in Berlin. But what about Mr. Hubbard in 24 at the Paris Olympic Games? What an occasion to celebrate with Ken Blackwell. Secretary Blackwell, how are you, sir?
Tavis, good to be with you. I'm doing just fine.
Man, it's good to hear you.
I track you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, thank you. Thank you for tracking me, and I'm glad I tracked you down for this conversation. Please give my best to everybody in your family, your precious family. Give them all my love and my regards.
I will do.
I appreciate that. So tell me about your uncle. I've known you for years and had no idea about this backstory, man.
Yeah, I tell you, Uncle DeHart was quite a fellow. He was an outstanding student and track star, even in high school. He went to the College Preparatory School, Walnut Hills, and just to give you a little backstory, he ran 5 touchdowns in his sophomore year. Before the second game, members of the Board of Education came out and disqualified him, said that he could not play. And one of the great stories in Cincinnati history is that his teammates at that time said, if he doesn't play, we don't play. And they forfeited their entire season. So he's been a change agent and a track star and a brilliant student for a long time. He went on to the University of Michigan. And, having been the treasurer of the state of Ohio, secretary of the state of Ohio, and the mayor of Cincinnati, I've always had to defend his greatness because he was a Wolverine.
And not a Buckeye, yeah.
not a Buckeye.
Yeah.
Tavis, he went to the 1924 games and he wrote his mom a beautiful letter I have it. The family has it. I think the original has now been sent to the U.S. Olympic Foundation, where he, in fact, said he was on the ship. We have a picture of him on the ship going to France, where he said he was going to be the first colored athlete to win an Olympic gold medal in an individual event. And I'll be damned, he did it. And what was interesting that year was that he had qualified for the 100, the I guess it was called the 220 back then, and the long jump. And one of the great stories was that he was going to compete against the great Eric Liddell. Everybody's familiar with the Chariots of Fire story, and where Eric Liddell was sort of ordained as the fastest man in the world. But my uncle was going to challenge him. But when he got to Paris, even though he had qualified, he was told that the 100 and the 220 were white-only events. And so he could only compete in the long jump, and he did, and he won the gold medal, becoming the first Black American to win a gold medal in track and field. But the beautiful thing about that is that he said that God had blessed him. He was great. He was appreciative of being able to win the gold medal, but he got to witness something, and that was Eric Liddell's decision not to run in the final because it fell on the Sabbath. And so one of the watch phrases that became a hallmark in my family was fidelity to faith, because that's what he witnessed. So let me just say something else, Tavis. Well, people don't know, when he came back to Cincinnati, he had graduated in the top 10% of his class at the University of Michigan. But the only job he could get was as a recreation commission worker. And what he did was take Nato baseball into the Black communities of Cincinnati. And lo and behold, he became not only the owner of the Cincinnati Tigers, but one of the founders of the American Negro Baseball League and an investor in the Indianapolis Clowns, a team for which Satchel Paige played. So this guy was an entrepreneur, boy, and a baseball guy.
I'm cracking up for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is I literally just came back from Indiana, from Indianapolis, and someone gave me as a gift an Indianapolis Clowns baseball cap.
I love it.
I literally, it's in the bag. I just got it. Here you mentioned the Negro League baseball team, the Indianapolis Clowns, and I'm gonna wear this hat in a couple of days. That's funny. When we come forward, I didn't want to interrupt because I wanted you just to lay this story out, because again, we all know the exploits, the brilliant exploits of Jesse Owens in '36, but hearing this backstory about DeHart Hubbard and what he did 100 years ago in 1924. And you heard what I heard coming out of the secretary, the treasurer, former secretary of state in Ohio, former mayor of Cincinnati. So obviously excellence runs in their race, pardon the pun. It runs in their race, runs in their family. To have all of this excellence in one particular family is pretty amazing, a Black family. But the fact that his uncle, DeHart Hubbard, could have won more gold, except they wouldn't let him run in these other races because they were white only. So while we celebrate this gold in the race that he could run, just think about what he could have done if they let him run in those other races. There's more I want to unpack when we come forward. Ken Blackwell on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam, from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Avitarus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising at KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you black.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk, too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
More of Ken Blackwell right now as we talk about his uncle DeHart Hubbard and this historic gold medal victory at the 1924 Paris Olympic Games. So, Secretary Blackwell, it's arresting to hear you tell this story, and by the way, you tell it quite eloquently. No surprise there. But what do you make of the fact that your uncle could have won more gold if they hadn't told him that those were whites only races?
Well, he always talked about barriers and breaking barriers, not just on the track, but in the world in general. And one of the highlights of my life was I was treasurer of the state of Ohio, and we were rededicating the track at Ohio State University as the Jesse Owens track. Mm-hmm. And Jesse was deceased at that time, but his wife was still alive. And she told me, she said, son, she said, your uncle was one of my husband's most admired figures, and they were friends. University of Michigan and Ohio State graduates, and that meant something to me because it was a sort of passing of the torch, and it was Jesse broke the barriers that my uncle couldn't break. Mm-hmm. But again, there were messages that he provided to the family, that you and I have talked about before in our own time. Mm-hmm. And that is that history isn't advanced by chance or blind change. It's advanced by men and women of dedication and purpose. That's right. And these were guys who were dedicated not only in their athletic endeavors, but in everything that they touched and they were engaged in. Tavis, at one point, he was the manager of the Valley Homes. And let me put something in perspective. Uneven development. When my dad came back from World War II, he came back to Cincinnati. There were vestiges of segregation. There was a housing shortage, and we lived in public housing for the first 10 years of my life. My uncle became the manager of the Valley Homes, a housing project built for the workers, World War II veterans coming back. And at that time, it was the largest self-governing black community in the country. So again, history has a ebb and flow, but those of us who can learn from those pioneers, those barrier breakers, we can go on to be barrier breakers ourselves.
No, indeed we can. And that's why these stories are always so empowering for me. When we come forward in our remaining moments with Ken Blackwell, I want to get back to that point that you raised earlier about the fidelity to faith. It's amazing to me what his uncle had to endure, what he was subjected to, what he was denied, frankly, in terms of opportunity. Jesse Jackson says all the time that Jackie Robinson wasn't the first one who could play baseball with the white boys. He's the first one that gave the opportunity to play Major League Baseball with the white guys. And so DeHart Hubbard was denied the opportunity to win more gold, but what he did win was historic in 1924 at these Paris games. But for him to come back from that and not to be embittered, but to have had a takeaway about a fidelity to faith. You've all seen that movie, Chariots of Fire. If you ain't seen it, one of the best movies made, a great film, won all kind of Academy Awards back in the day, but it tells a pretty amazing story. But that DeHart Hubbard comes back with this fidelity to faith is amazing to me, given what they put him through. We'll talk about that part in our remaining moments with Ken Blackwell on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a black and you're vulnerable, it is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right. I gotta try that Febreze car. Just right, just right, just right. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency, all over Febreze car, just right on your face. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face. It smells just right, just right, just right. And breathe happy.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
As I promised, I would bring this news to you as quickly as I got it. So Israel has responded. I announced a little while ago that Hamas stated publicly that they had accepted a ceasefire negotiated by Egypt and Qatar. And now Israel has spoken, and they have said that this softened deal, that's a quote from an Israeli official, this softened deal is not acceptable to Israel. That's what we know right now. I'll do a little more research at the top of the hour and have more for you on the other side, but I want to give you that breaking news as quickly as I got it. I am reading a number of stories now that suggest that Israeli officials have called this acceptance by Hamas a ruse. They've called it a ruse. They've called it a softened deal. And according to these officials in Israel, this deal is not NOT, not acceptable to Israel. So the saga continues more on the other side as soon as I can get my hands on it in a few moments. Now, though, in the 3 minutes I have left, let me wrap this conversation. Some days it's like that, Secretary Blackwell, just breaking news everywhere, man. And I'll try to squeeze it in as quickly as I get it, so I apologize for that, but want to get that to the audience right away. Let me close these last 3 minutes with this notion of fidelity to faith. I listened intently as you told the story of your uncle going there and the ways in which he was maltreated. He still comes out a winner of this historic gold medal victory in 24 at the Paris Olympic Games. But he has this takeaway that becomes a mantra for your family, fidelity to faith. In the last 2 minutes, tell me more about that, please.
Well, it was the fuel to his whole approach to life, and he was an inspiration to the generations to follow. Because at the heart of it, what he understood, and it was takeaway from the Eric Little situation, is that faith that is not tested can't be trusted. And so he basically said, we must engage our faith, and we must have faith in our faith, and that we must be willing to take the risk of doing the right thing. And let me just tell you how it all comes to. Satchel Paige, who again played for the Indianapolis Clowns, but he knew my uncle. They were friends. I grew up with Satchel Paige sayings taped on my wall, and one of my favorite was when Satchel Paige said, "It is damn difficult to steal second base if you want to keep one foot on first." Sometimes you got to take the risk of breaking for freedom. You can't be so comfortable in a stale status quo that you get your butt whooped. You got to get out there and do it. And that's what Uncle DeHart was all about. Fidelity to faith and a willingness to test that faith.
Yeah. I have never had a conversation with Ken Blackwell for all the years I've known him and his fine family. I've never had a conversation with him, his wife or family that I was not inspired by. I've been in their home, and there's just stuff on the walls that you can read and look at that will inspire you whenever you're around them. They're just an uplifting people, and I love that. Here he is dropping bars at the very end. So first of all, beyond this conversation, we're gonna think about what it means to have a fidelity to faith. We're going to think about the fact that faith not tested cannot be trusted, and we're going to think about the fact that you can't steal second if you don't take your foot off first. Sometimes you got to step out and take a risk. Ken Blackwell, I love you, man. I appreciate you for sharing this story about your Uncle DeHart Hubbard.
Right back at you, brother. You inspire my hope.
Oh, man. Good to have you on this program. Get a chance, Google and read more about this amazing guy, DeHart Hubbard, who won this historic gold medal victory at the 1924 Paris Olympic Games. And if he's a hero to Jesse Owens, he ought to be a hero to all the rest of us. Read about him, DeHart Hubbard, when you get a chance. Our remaining hour when we come forward, the Preservation Hall Jazz Band out of New Orleans on Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
We thank you for sharing